Hello and welcome to the Barcast. I'm your host, Nick Barr, coming to you on a rainy summer Monday afternoon here in Brooklyn, New York. If you've been following along with the Barcast, you know that we ran a series of posts on Evagrius Ponticus, the Christian desert father, who wrote really influential teachings on the 8 evil thoughts, or logimi, and these later were turned into the 7 deadly sins, as well as they were also the basis of the Enneagram. But in Evagrius's telling, these 8 thoughts, these logimi, are like little imperceptible devils sent to the human mind to attack it, to impassion it, to inflame it, and turn it further away from God. So we're now turning to a different religious tradition, that of Tibetan Buddhism. And I have in front of me Jamgon Kongtrul's compilation on Chö, or Severance. This is a tradition that dates back to 11th century, when a woman, Machik Labdrön, began teaching a new tradition. And it says here that she taught what we're about to read, this great bundle of precepts. She taught this in a single day to a large crowd that included 3 Indians who arrived instantly in Tibet by means of the practice called Swiftfoot, to investigate the authenticity of Machik and her increasingly popular teaching. So she was a bit of a maverick, and as a woman, probably the target of a lot of suspicion. And at the same time, her teaching is very traditional. There are a lot of reasons why I'm excited to read it today, but as we'll see, one of them is that we're going to be firmly in the demonology realm, so continuing Evagrius's work with demons. And I think it maybe will surprise some that Buddhism is going to be using this word devil, but as we'll see, the Buddhist conception of the devil is really different than Evagrius's, even though a lot of the practice instruction is the same. So we'll read the sutra. It's short, maybe 15 minutes, and then do a little bit of discussion on Mantrik's taxonomy of devils. There are 4 in her classification, and we'll explore a little bit about what her project is here. I'll just say, by way of preface here, that this tradition on severance grew and grew and grew after Machik. There's a story in the introduction of this compilation that says a monk visited a man who was in a huge room, 4-pillared room, surrounded with books stacked from the floor to the ceiling. And he asked him where all the books are about, and he said, they're all about severance. They're all commentaries on Machik. So this is an original teaching that spawned a lot of additional teachings and practices. And we're not going to get into the actual practice of Chö much here. This is going to be more of an investigation of the text itself. So with that out of the way, let's hear from Machik herself. Homage to the unutterable, unthinkable, unimaginable state, basic space beyond objects without reference. The great bundle of precepts on severance is written in hopes of benefiting a few. The root devilry is one's own mind. The devil lays hold through clinging and attachment in the cognition of whatever objects appear. Grasping mind as an object is corruption. Devils are classified as 4: tangible devil and intangible devil, the devil of exaltation, and the devil of inflation. All are included in the devil of inflation. Tangible devils are numerous. However, judging the appearances that arise to our senses, negating or affirming them is the tangible devil. Grasping them as definite binds us to samsara. Form is empty of the essence of form. Do not attach to form. Meditate on it as empty. Lacking attachment to form as definite is release from the devil of fixation on permanence. Not meditating on emptiness mentally is definite liberation from the devil of nihilism. The appearance of form cannot be stopped, but without definite grasping, it is lucid self-appearance. Sound, smell, taste, tactile sensation, mentation, and so forth are similarly released. Mentation is the intangible devil, but when it arises through the sense doors, it is taught as the tangible devil. With an attitude of self-liberation, directly cut through all that appears to the sense perceptions, it becomes inseparable great stupidity. Intangible devils occur in this way: good and bad sensations of mental objects that are distinguished by one's own thoughts are revealed as the intangible devils. Apart from being products of naturally arising mind, fixating on good gods as gods, fixating on bad demons as demons, and all thought-provoking mental hopes and fears are one's own devils rising up to oneself. From the realm of phenomena's great expanse of clarity, any thoughts and memories whatsoever may arise. For example, like the arising of waves and so on from the unmoving ocean. Thus, a person with realization rests on their own ground without altering it. Liberated in space, help and harm do not occur. Self-arisen from the space of phenomena nature, jealous acts and acceptance and rejection do not apply in self-occurring mind, unengaged with acceptance or rejection. The devil of exaltation occurs in this way. Common devils and supreme devils come from the mind of deluded cognition. In haunted places, when demons do not affect you, arrogance arises and becomes the devil of exaltation. When signs of blessing and ability occur, merit and material wealth are the devil of distraction. Wealth, fame, friends, and foes are the devil of delight. Gods and demons bestow spiritual power. Children and relatives gather as entourage, causing joy and conceit, the devil of exaltation. Whatever qualities occur, whatever arises, an attitude of non-dual object and mind does not grasp at those qualities as the self. As with the objects in dreams, engage without attachment to their nature. Like the beauty produced by a lovely face, self-occurrence adorns itself. There is no cause for arrogance. If it does arise, fixating in deluded cognition corrupts. This supreme conduct of non-fixation's own way fills the hearts of the wise. Supreme devils are of two kinds, those of the path and of the result. The conceit of a view free of elaboration, the conceit of a meditation in equipoise, the conceit of conduct without thoughts. All conceits on the path of practice, if engaged in as objects for even a moment, obstruct the path and are the devil's work. View and meditation are taught only symbolically. They certainly have nothing to do with mentation. Without asserting any notion of a view about the unimpeded arising of anything, unbiased experience dawns as basic space. The supreme severance is no view. Everything is self-occurring mind, so a meditator does not meditate. Whatever self-arising sensations occur, rest serene, clear, and radiant. Serene, since the meaning is unchanging. Clear, because of definite realization. And radiant, since liberation is on its own ground. For example, it is like putting butter into butter. The meditative stability of not meditating, that is the supreme meditation. One's conduct is automatically self-liberated. To do it purposely is not to engage it. Do not grasp the arising experience through an antidote. Even if abolished, when one knows it is self-occurring, one self-liberates oneself without hindrance. If there is a particularly powerful realization, definite conduct is uninhibited. Do not engage conduct without realization. The customary approach of this instruction brings blessings of the sublime and the confidence to directly stamp down discursive thought. As blessings gradually enter, definite realization will arise. This truly spoken instruction goes beyond all spheres of engagement. It is said to be the supreme conduct of no conduct. Taking nothing at all into experience is to have taken into experience. Experience is the intellectual experience of knowables. In the authentic meaning, there is nothing to taste. Apart from the unborn, there is nothing to take up. The nature of phenomena is experienced by taking into experience. Practice without attachment to objective reality, with the attitude of severing objective mental appearances, is the supreme path of freedom, say the gurus. The result is like a wish-fulfilling gem. The supreme devil is like this, desiring the results of tenet systems and vehicles of the Shravakas, Pratyekya Buddhas, and such, and the definite attainment of the three kayas is to have desire, the devil of conceit. Body, speech, and mind are taught to be by nature the resultant three kayas. Buddha is not accomplished apart from that. Leaving oneself behind in searching, even after many millions of eons of practicing, will not attain it. Don't search, don't practice, rest in your nature. The confidence of severance is to be without hope. No hope, free of extremes of fear. Other than the decisive cutting off of fixation, how could there be definite Buddhahood? Devils are divided into four, but they are included in the devil of inflation. Becoming inflated with objective things is taught to be the tangible devil. Attachment and aversion to objective things, if just realized as inflation at the root, is like the smoke in the crevices of a wall that subsides naturally when the hearth fire is extinguished. Decisively cutting through inflation liberates fixation to real things. As in cessation, appearances do not stop. Realizing rootlessness is to cut off the tangible devil and all definite devils. For example, it is like a skilled illusionist who has no attachment to the created appearances. More than that, inflation should be decisively cut off. Even if it is not cut off by severing it, if rootlessness is realized, it cannot take hold. There is liberation in the expanse of the realm of phenomena. Resolution without judgment is crucial. The intangible devil is also included in inflation. Afflictive emotions such as the five poisons, fears about invisible demons, hopes regarding unreal gods, and all similar hopes and fears about mental objects arise from inflation are the devil of inflation. Aggression is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from the boiling and burning of hell's devil, the mirror-like timeless awareness is obtained. Desire is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from the hunger and thirst of the hungry ghost devil, the discriminating timeless awareness is obtained. Stupidity is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from exploitation of the animal devil, the timeless awareness of the realm of phenomena is obtained. Jealousy is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from the inconstancy of the human devil, the timeless awareness of accomplishing action is obtained. Pride is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from the disputes of the devil of downfall, the timeless awareness of equality is obtained. Inflation not decisively cut off is the five poisons, but inflation cut off is the self-liberated five awarenesses. Thus everything is included in inflation. Just as a lion on the high snowy peaks has no fear or apprehension, If you attain confidence without inflation, the gods and demons of apparent existence cannot arise. Even if 100 rise up, the instructions will clear them away. If you know that they are your own apparitions, it will certainly become a great training exercise. Don't meditate after severing the flow of thoughts. Realizing that it is self-arising is sufficient. It is the equivalent of epidemic disease and such. Once rootlessness is realized, this cutting off is especially elevated above all instructions. Even with realization, if you do not directly cut through, it is like tossing out a tempered, sharp weapon. The view will not protect you, and you are bound by fear. The yoga that brings together view and conduct is like the weapon carried by warriors that vanquish all the enemy hosts. All the devils are vanquished in the space without inflation. Emma ho. Devils are pacified by cutting through one's own inflation. Awakening is actualized by realizing rootlessness. So then rest relaxed and unaffected. Rest just so with everything. The devil of exaltation is also included in inflation. Exaltation about common dharma and exaltation about supreme results come about from one's own inflation. Definite attachment turns it into a devil. Self-arising without attachment is not inflation. It is said to be the adornment of Dharmakaya. Since the resultant three kayas are oneself, there is no need to be conceited about another. Samsara is liberated on its own ground. Do not seek nirvana apart from that. Do not meditate purposefully on non-thought apart from the arising of thought's own forms. Since everything else is inflation, I speak of decisively severing inflation. Resting in refined essence is taught everywhere. There is no recognition of the mind of refined essence. This is ascertained through example. Yogins who have obtained the instructions are like birds nourishing their young. If instructions are only delivered by the lips, autumn chicks will die of starvation. One will certainly wander in samsara oneself. Like a fine cow nourishing a small calf, when she helps herself to a full belly, it sustains the small calves and such. If one's own inflation is decisively cut off, sentient beings will surely become liberated. No doubt the welfare of others will be achieved. The great Garuda soaring in the sky sees the four continents effortlessly. With no trepidation in the abyss of deep ravines, she subdues with splendor the flocks of birds. Likewise, when experience is decisively cut off, the four devils are realized as rootless. Demons and devils and such are subdued by splendor. There is no trepidation about the three lower realms. Engaging in cause and effect dharma without a definite understanding of rootlessness is like leaving the trunk and reaching for the branches. Yogins who realize rootlessness know that thoughts and memories are incidental and engage in the dharma without rejection or acceptance. Seeing form, they regard it as the mind's body. Hearing sound, they regard it as mind's speech. Whatever is thought is regarded as mind's mind. Behold the meaning of no cause and effect. The method of resting and the abiding nature of meditation is like a statue inside the shriner. It has good posture and smiles, but no thought and no manner of thinking. So set one's body however is comfortable, and with no thought, do no thinking. No object of thought, that's exactly it. Therefore rest in a state of no thought. Don't cut off sensations and thoughts after the fact. As lightning bolts revert to the sky, when conceptual thought occurs, rest just so. Like the depths of a great ocean, rest within an unmoving state. Circumstantial thoughts, like waves, naturally become the realm of phenomena's nature. Not to contrive or adulterate is the victor's word. If you contrive, it is the devil of creation, so definitely rest on your own ground. Like a person pained by disease, freely rest the six groups of consciousness. Like a person who has finished their work, rest instantly with a satisfied mind. like a small child not seeing its mother, appearing though powerless, rest within that state. Awareness carries the corpse of one's body, cast it out in an unattached way in haunted grounds and other frightful places. Rest mind itself in the expanse of the Great Mother. Whatever thoughts and memories consciously occur, consider them as actual emanations of the Great Mother. Mother's emanations do not bind to samsara. Like a simpleton with a full belly, rest in the complete eradication of concepts. Samsara abandoned, nirvana is certain. Emaho, effortless. Realize this intent. Conduct is presented through analogies. Like the fierce gatekeepers, the kinkara, although they seem wrathful and fierce, afflictive emotion does not arise in their being. In the conduct of truly great yogic discipline, there is no thought of aggression or passion. Great yogic discipline tames obstacles. With no aggression or passion, that itself is the path. Like fish swimming in the sea, conduct is aimless, without fixation and attachment. Like mountain ravines cutting off the cold breezes, attachment aversion is traceless, beyond consideration. In one's conduct toward oneself, there is no need to involve inflation or inflated objects. Conduct yourself without fixating on yourself. Don't you consider the enemy in a dream as coming from yourself? Even the spiritual powers of Yidam deities arise to the mind from the meditating mind. Therefore it is oneself, not another. Other than severing one's own appearances, oneself, there is no connection with others' objects, so they cannot harm, as, for example, the poisonous snakes of India. Results are presented by an analogy. Even though white is not established in butter, recognizing butter confirms white. Once butter is just recognized for sure, there's no need to establish white elsewhere. Similarly, although Buddha is not established, recognize the mind confirms Buddha. Once one's mind is recognized for sure, there is no need to establish Buddha from elsewhere. Inflation-free, rootless, victorious over all, there is nothing else to accomplish. With such realization, devils are pacified. Moreover, it is self-occurring self-pacification. Non-cognizant stupidity in the realm of phenomena, cognized as objective, is diluted by grasping. Cognition other than that of single inseparability is to cycle in the places of the three realms and be diluted in the places of the six classes. That is inherently diluted cognition. Gradual vehicles of Dharma that are dependent are also diluted by cognition in view, meditation, and result. Nihilists cognize the object as absolute nothingness. Eternalists cognize the object as immutability. Shravakas cognize objective percept perceiver. Pratyeka Buddhas cognize the emptiness of interdependence. Chittamatrins cognize reflexively aware mind. Madhyamikas cognize freedom from elaboration. Father Tantras cognize bliss clarity energy currents. Mother Tantras cognize the seal of bliss emptiness. Method and wisdom cognize non-duality. Mahamudra is cognition beyond intellect. And great completion cognizes great atemporality. Thus, all of these cognitions are cognitions that cognize objective reality, which is not the subject itself. Without an object, there is no cognition of mind. Any cognition is bondage by cognition. Therefore, this non-cognizant stupidity the victors teach as great timeless awareness. Ignorance is without object, so delusion is clarified. When objective appearance is just mentally abandoned, it is the decisive cutting off of all inflation without exception. Without an object, what would cognition get inflated about? If cognition is just understood as delusion, then without fixation on deluded phenomena, unfixated cognition appears as anything at all, naturally occurring without deliberation. If such is the intent, it is ever so. The genuine meaning, that Great Mother, is also the ground of all samsara and nirvana. Even the Buddhas of the three times teach it as uncreated, birthless ground. Since Buddha is unconditioned, if you believe in the unborn, then there is no creator of unborn ground. errors about unmade ground are severed. Since the unmade is unconditioned, one definitely travels the path of no making. Since appearing emptiness is not mind-made, take the path without eternalism or nihilism. Since non-duality is not mind-made, the devil of four perception spheres is liberated. Cognitive obscurations are pure on their own ground. If form and feeling, perception, and so on are truly not mentally engaged, they will be liberated from the place of the three realms. They will not become mixed up in samsara. If nothing at all is made in mind, habitual patterns won't arise, and the levels and paths are complete. Mental non-engagement as the supreme path was definitely taught in the words of the victor. When one realizes mental non-engagement, mental activity need not be stopped. Like a mirage, it vanishes on its own ground. The yogins with such realization need not block carefree conduct. Whatever is done becomes the path. Non-doing itself is the path. Presentation of the unreal results. Three kayas are taught as results, but other than teaching the expedient meaning, the marks and signs and so on have not even an atom of definitive reality. If real, whatever is real ultimately falls. It does not pass to the other side of samsara. The perfection of wisdom is not real as an object of the intellect. The perfection of wisdom is not real as an object of the intellect. To the intellect, samsaric phenomena are real. Without the realization that results are unreal, whatever effort is made toward achieving it will not become the attainment of freedom. Without annihilating the mind-craving dharma, engaging in dharma with intellectual craving becomes the support for bondage, despite being dharma. Thus one is cheated of the vitality of esoteric instructions. Buddhahood is not conditional, so how could one achieve it by conditioned effort? Don't be mentally attached to conditioned dharma. Don't place great hope in fabricated dharma. Not fixating on body is the victor's body. Not fixating on speech is the victor's speech. Not fixating on mind is the victor's mind. Other than lucid clarity without fixation, do not seek elsewhere for the victor's intent. Emaho. Severance means to sever conceptual thinking. Precepts means unchanging in nature. Bundle means teachings as a bunch of explanations. Earnest experiential practice is taught beyond referential objects, free of intellectual experiential practice. When severing in haunted places and such, just as one who is burned by fire is tormented again by that fire itself, the instructions for suppression and severing in a place are like cauterizing the wounds by fire. Carry the load of appearing conditions. Understand that to carry the load is crucial. If you don't carry the load of all phenomena, the remedy of peace and happiness can't liberate you. Wander in haunted places and mountain retreats. Don't be distracted by text. The words of texts won't convey blessings, but carry word brutes, better to practice in haunted places. The esoteric instructions and the perfection of wisdom called the Great Bundle of Precepts on Severance, created by the Dakini of Timeless Awareness, Lapti Droma, is complete. So we'll stop there.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the use of this devil classification system here. Why is it that Machik chooses to talk about evil? This is severance of evil objects, devils. It maybe sounds a little un-Buddhist. It maybe sounds a little Christian. And that's what I was really interested in digging into. And if you've been following the Barcast, you know that we've been talking about devils in the tradition of early Christianity as represented by Evagrius. So we'll do a little bit of comparison there. Machik is extremely clear up front about what devils are. And so she writes, the root devilry is one's own mind. The devil lays hold through clinging and attachment in the cognition of whatever objects appear. Grasping mind as an object is corruption. Extremely clear. It's really the beginning and the end of the system, really. So even though we're going to dive into a fairly elaborate classification system, the devil is one's own mind. Um, and this couldn't be more different from Evagris's framework, where there is an external adversary. Here, the adversary is internal. However, there is an adversary, right? So, um, and this is a place where Machik and Evagris would agree. Um, there's an adversary, there is an opponent who seems to actively work against one's own wishes for enlightenment or awakening or coming to God. Uh, and the attitude to take up regarding this is not enmity, not hate. Although Evagris will say indignation, thumos, this heart center in his framework, there's a no saying, no, get back. So there is a boundary or a no, and we'll see if there's something similar or not with Buddhism, because Buddhism, or at least this particular tradition, it it's it's sort of, I get confused at times because on the one hand you'll hear about Milarepa or uh, some other great master, inviting the demons to tea, welcoming them, inviting them in. So a sort of boundarylessness, a porousness, a yes saying. And at times, this is a severance tradition. This is a cutting tradition. This is a no tradition. And we'll talk in a minute about the word pit, this plosive, to me, which is the act of cutting and casting up into space for feasting. So how can it be both? Like, and I actually think there's an answer, and it's a classically Buddhist answer. But let's get into that in a second. Why do we even need to talk about devils, right? If the devil is one's own mind, and keep in mind, Machik is writing in the 11th century, so she has access to all the sutras, and we see in the tradition words like obscuration, hindrance, ignorance, confusion, to name a few, right? These are all traditional ways to describe exactly what Machik's talking about, which is the process of clinging and attachment, right? Aversion and attraction, passion and aggression, and confusion as the third, right at the beating heart of the samsaric wheel, but never really called devils. Well, okay, but there's Mara. I guess Mara is, maybe Mara really is the tradition's way of talking about the devil. Um, so okay, but so why do we even need to talk about devils? I think each word or each framework affords its own understanding. So if I think about darkness or ignorance or obscuration, words that indicate a kind of blindness or darkness, what that evokes for me is the opportunity for light to instantly resolve it. So if I'm in a dark room, hopelessly probing around for the chair to sit in, and then somebody turns the light on, I'm flooded instantly with understanding and resolution to my confusion. And in fact, even if someone were to turn the light off after that, I probably would still find the chair. So I think obscuration is effective at uh, essentially reinforcing like a non-dual point of view. And by non-dual, I mean that like light and dark are not two forces that are opposed to each other. There's just light, and then the absence of light, or the occlusion or obscuration of light, the sun behind the clouds, etc. So that's really helpful, I think, in not reifying and not grasping at difficulty. Um, I once was blind and now I see, right? So there's sort of like I'd say a hopeful quality to the word obscuration, and I think that's what's foregrounded there. Then there are words like poisons, hindrances, obstacles. These become more practical ways of talking about things that happen to us on the path. Uh, Pride, um, but also ill health, jealousy, um, and good health can be its own obstacle, right? So sort of anything can arise as obstacles, and we encounter obstacles in our path. And so when we talk about obstacles, I think the kind of understanding or way forward that affords is transmutation, transformation, and transformation is always a tricky subject because for for those of us who are drawn to kind of like a wizard or alchemist archetype, there's this feeling of like I'm going to change my jealousy into action, or I'm going to uh, change my grief into joy. Mm. And we can't really bring in that agenda so successfully. And so, even though the tradition talks a lot about transmutation and transformation, whenever it's doing that, it's talking about that being the result of seeing sufficiently into what the grief is made of, what the jealousy is made of, what the obstacle is made of. But anyway, I think if obscuration really points to light, then obstacle really points to transformation, to going into the thing itself and looking at it and seeing what it's made of. And then devil, I think, points to yet a third approach, which is just instant opposition, instant no, instant cutting. It's not gradual. It's not really a practice, even. It's like a victorious. It's When I hear Maciek talk about devils, I don't really think of it as like the haunted place with ghosts all around. It's incessant. They're always arising and attacking, but defeating them is effortless. It's effortless, except for the incessance of uh, the devils, the opponents. Uh, when we work with devils, we acknowledge that there certainly seems to be forces working hard against our awakening. I mean, if there weren't, there'd be a lot more peace and contentment in the world. We're not fighting like there aren't just some hurdles to step over. Like there seems to be a real uh, adversarial force. So when we talk about devils, we acknowledge that. and yet we recognize the emptiness of them, right? That the devil is one's own mind. So it is fighting the opponent in a larger understanding of non-separateness of uh, person and adverse condition. The adverse condition is my mind, uh, and so is a constant opportunity for integration or digestion. So why devils? Um, Cutting is only possible through the word devil. We don't uh, we don't cut through obscuration. We don't cut through darkness, and we also don't really cut through poison or cut through hindrances. Um, we cut through illusion. We cut through um, things come at us, and we cut through them. So there is absolutely a sense of warfare here, but the war that's being fought is, I would say, like, first of all, one-sided. Um, One-sided in the sense of it's not a fair fight. We have we have Arthur's blade. We have the Vajra. We have um, the indestructible weapon. It is not, so it's not fair. It's not a fair fight. It's not an even fight. There's no enmity. There's not hostility. Um, uh, and the lack of hostility comes from the awareness that our opponent is our own mind. Um, but there is scheming. There is sort of like complexity, complicatedness. The enemy does seem to have a strategy. Um, and so there's a cunning or an intelligence that I think we're inviting in. When we talk about a devil, we talk about an agent, essentially, right? To use everyone's favorite word these days. There's an there's a perceived agency there, which would make sense because we're acknowledging that the devil is one's own mind. So what it's made of it's made of mind. So of course it's going to have um, a certain quality of cunning to it, or strategy, or survival skills. And that's where Evagrius and Machik are on the same page, because even though Evagrius is not ultimately saying that the devils are one's own mind, the devils are made of mind. I guess that's sort of what, in that Christian tradition, devils, angels, and humans are all cut from the same cloth, which is God. So that's probably where you would draw the connection. Not that devils are in the if I tried to pull them together, um, I might say in Evagrius language that devils and humans are ultimately both made of God material. Because in Evagrius, as I think in Origin before him, the the Satan himself and the devils themselves ultimately are nothing but um, souls that sort of departed from God through drift, essentially. Yeah. So here we're taking on the God seat when we sit and we do this practice, and when we say pip, and when we'll see, although I'm not going to go deep into the ritual work, uh, a lot of this practice is done as Great Mother, is done as Dharmakaya, uh, from basic space. So we're taking on a pretty, you know, victorious attitude in this work. Okay. So the other uh, reason why we benefit from using the devil framework here is it affords this classification of the four devils: tangible, intangible, devil of exaltation, and devil of inflation. And for me, this feels like a kind of a Mahamudra move in the sense of creating scaffolding or a ladder that ultimately gets kicked out, right? And so we're always remembering that this is a provisional system that only exists to help practitioners overcome, confusion in the short term. And that provisional nature is baked into the fact that each devil belongs to the following class. So the tangible devil is an instance of intangible devil, is an instance of devil of exaltation, is an instance of devil of inflation. So in the end, there's just one devil to cut down, to cut through. And once you see that, then you have no use for the classification system. But if you're just new to this work and you haven't been spending months in haunted places, calling all demons to feast on you, then you might benefit from this classification system. And so I'll go through it quickly. It's pretty simple and it's quite traditional, despite using some language that's maybe uh, unfamiliar. The tangible devil is just objects, uh, external objects. And again, even here, Machik is saying tangible devils are numerous, i.e., objects are everywhere. However, um, the tangible devil is the judging of appearances as uh, desirable, undesirable, objects of negation or affirmation, objects of desire and aggression. I think desire and aggression is my preferred two words in this case. And it comes back to Evagrius: desire, epithumia, aggression, thumos, as these primordial human faculties. Um, and Evagrius makes a really nice move there that maybe we can talk about now, where desire or epithumia, longing, in its to use a Christian, Evagrius word, corruption, and it's corrupted or impassioned, inflamed, as in like en flamed, or rather inflammation, in inflamed, like aggravated longing that becomes the basis for lusts and avarice, desire, wanting, longing, needing, not getting, wanting more, all that. That's in the belly, epithumia. Um, but in its pure form is a longing to be with God, to know God. Um, and uh, epithumia, I'm not like really steeped in all of the language, but uh, it's one of the Ten Commandments. Longing one's donkey or one's wife, or whatever that one is. That's that same word, epithumia, longing. But Jesus in Luke also says, "I have longed to eat with you. With longing, I have longed to eat with you." And he uses this in speaking to his disciples about Passover. Uses the same word. So longing, appetite, um, is not something that goes away, I guess is the point for Evagrius. Um, but it is something that the devils in his world, he calls them logimi. They're these sort of the devil's attack as thought, which is very much like air, prana. There's a wispy quality that images appear as sort of fluttering fantasies that try to hook the epithumia, inflame it, and then the devils are off to the races, right? That's how the devils win. The devils win through hooking. And when we're cutting, what we're cutting is that stream, that continuity of uh, illusion, fantasy. So anyway, um, that's Evagris's take on desire, and then aggression, which he would call indignation. Same thing. As a human faculty, it gets corrupted. One of the easiest ways it gets corrupted. He's so precise with his descriptions of devils, and I find this to be true, which is that like the thumos, the heart center, the indignation can even smell devils coming, and so it's already kind of pissed off when they're here. And so, if, for instance, if I start to get, I want some nachos with extra cheese, and I get longing. I also get disgust simultaneously at my longing, which oftentimes his point is that's exactly what the devils are trying to do. The devils, even when they're spiking your longing, what they actually might be trying to do is get your indignation turning into ire, anger, or wrath. That's self-directed at the, and once the devils have your desire and your aggression talking to each other, then you're really in trouble, right? At least that's the case for me. That then you get polarized and say, I really want this, but shame on me. I shouldn't want it, but I deserve it. And why am I always, everybody's not letting me get what I want? Yeah, screw. Okay, so now we're really lost. So that's all the tangible devil. What's the tangible devil is anytime there's fixation on an external object, sense perception. And so the emptiness and impermanence are the sort of classic. This is Buddhism 101, right? Like, and he, that's funny. She cites the Heart Sutra here. Form is empty of the essence of form. Do not attach to form. Meditate on it. Meditate on it as empty. Very clear instructions for if you're so attacked by the external devil, then that's your place to work. Evagris in his Practicos is writing for monks, and so what he says sort of time and again is like, you're probably past that point, for your audience, and you're onto the much more difficult devil, which is the intangible devil. Mentation, thinking, thoughts and feelings. And Machik makes this technical point that's important, which is remembering that all the external devils are just, they are thought forms. They're just thought forms that go through the sense consciousness. Whereas thoughts and feelings can ultimately go through sense consciousness, but are upstream of sense consciousness in mental consciousness. So moving from desire and aggression, we're now talking about hopes and fears. I like that a lot, these two pairs. Desire and aggression, hope and fear. So now we're talking about arriving at an attitude of hopelessness and fearlessness. And later in this liturgy, no, it's not really a liturgy. In this sutra, or in this Dharma talk, Machik brings up the realms, which she connects to the 5 poisons in the 5 Buddha families. So she's got to remove a realm for that. I guess she takes away the God realm, I believe. There's a lot of ways to make this work. We don't need to get into the technicalities of it, but let's just read her approach to the intangible devil. Afflictive emotions such as the 5 poisons, fears about invisible demons, hopes regarding unreal gods, and all similar hopes and fears about mental objects arise from inflation and are the devil of inflation. She's saying the devil of inflation here because she's making her final point, but this is the intangible devil. Aggression is liberated on its own ground, but it comes from cutting the root of inflation. Released from the boiling and burning of hell's devil, the mirror-like timeless awareness is obtained. So aggression, right? Aggression, desire, stupidity, jealousy, pride. These are the five poisons associated with the five realms, combining sort of the Titan realm and the God realm to describe pride. These are like moods or atmospheres. So just as there are many tangible devils, but when you cut the tangible devil, you cut the that which has desire or aggression. Um, you cut that clinging. So too with intangible devils, there are many thoughts and feelings, but at the end of the day, um, I'm looking to see if she says this decisively, but the intangible devil is hope or fear, is um just checking like what's different between desire and aggression or hope and fear. I would say hope and fear to me feel more like long-term ongoing projects. That's why I can think about them as moods or atmospheres. I can be in a mood of hope for a while. If I do this, then something's going to happen. I really hope I get that job offer. And if I do, all these great things will happen and we'll get more money and, that'll be great. Or fear, I'm worried I'm going to get fired. Everyone around me wants to get me in trouble, an attitude, an air of suspicion, paranoia, right? So the that's the intangible devil is like what is the realm or the mood or the vibe or the atmosphere, what is the quality of the atmosphere and how do I cut through that, recognizing it as in this framework as one of the five poisons. I think that lands for me at least. Desire and aggression feel very immediate. Hope and fear feel more moody. So, if you're this far along in your practice, then you're in great shape. But you're not done because you may now be sitting, as she says, in the haunted places. In haunted places, when demons do not affect you, arrogance arises and becomes the devil of exaltation. So I think she spends the most time in the devil of exaltation. She even has a sub-classification system: common devils and supreme devils. So common devils, I think these are the hindrances, I believe. Um, Wealth, fame, friends, and foes are the devil of delight. Gods and demons bestow spiritual powers. So exaltation, and remember, these are sort of concentric circles. So exaltation is going to include the devil of the intangible devil. This to me feels like pride. Again, I'm in conversation with Evagrius throughout here, and so in the Christian tradition, well, Evagrius, I don't think he necessarily gives special treatment to pride so much, but I'm sure it's in there, and I think we all know, kind of in a folk understanding of Christianity, is that pride is the original sin, is the sin of Satan. It's pride that caused the cooling of um, cooling is the word that Origen and Evagrius use. There's a cooling in the relationship with God as one drifts. One thinks like I did it. I'm the one. I think it becomes much more subject than object at this point. It's not me, mine. It's I. I did it. I'm the one. You kind of fall out of fall out of awareness. You're thrown into something unfamiliar, and the I asserts itself. I I made this. I did it. And so the reason these hindrances come up, wealth, fame, friends, they mention foes, but if we just stuck with wealth, fame, and friends, who wouldn't want? I mean, wealth, fame, and friends. The reason that this is such a disaster from the Buddhist perspective is these are all opportunities to, we're getting closer to the root of inflation, to feel exalted, to feel bigger. There's some way that my external circumstances reflect on me, that I had something to do with it. And of course, the answer here, and Machi does such a great job of clarifying this, the answer here is not that I didn't have anything to do with it. Rather, as with the objects in dreams, engage without attachment to their nature. Like the beauty produced by a lovely face, self-occurrence adorns itself. There is no cause for arrogance. You look ridiculous from Machi's perspective if you you're exalted because of these. Let's get a little bit more out of common and into supreme exalted devil, out of ordinary stuff. Kind of these are the tangible exaltations, right? Like wealth, external exaltations. Let's talk about supreme view. Let's talk about awakening, or let's talk about realizing emptiness. Let's talk about uh, experiencing grace or divine intervention, right? There's so many ways that our path can be affirmed to us and show us that we're doing the right thing, that we're on the right way. Uh, what is the right attitude toward that? Everything is an expression of mind. Everything is an expression of, this self liberation, self occurrence, self adornment. Um, if you do a deity practice and picture your deity with these incredible garments and perfume and jewelry, imagine the attitude that that deity has with relationship to their ornaments. Uh, Absolutely, there's a pride. There's like a nobility and a um, these ornaments absolutely do work as like signs of innate, inherent elegance, beauty, nobility, wealth, whatever. And there's absolutely no fixation on them. Like one's nobility doesn't get reduced by taking off the earrings. Maybe that's one way to look at it, right? Like if your deity um, removes any of its garments or ornaments or jewels, is its nobility reduced at all? No. But if Elon Musk's wealth goes down, or I felt so on top of my spiritual practice and then have a crisis, it starts to feel like the stock market, ups and downs. So that's all pointing at exaltation. And uh, I love, Machik spends a lot of time in various ways of, you know, um, cautioning against exaltation. I really think in a way her audience is for the practitioners who are kind of somewhere in the exaltation stage, just based on how much time she spends describing it. And she uses the word stupidity a lot, which I love. Um, let's just read this phrase, this passage. Non-cognizant stupidity in the realm of phenomena cognized as objective is deluded by grasping. Cognition other than that of a single inseparability is to cycle in the places of the three realms and be deluded in the places of the six classes. That is inherently deluded cognition. Gradual vehicles of Dharma that are dependent are also deluded by cognition in view, meditation, and result. Nihilists cognize the object as absolute nothingness. Eternalists cognize the object as immutability. Shravakas cognize objective percept perceiver. Pratyekya Buddhas cognize the emptiness of interdependence. Chittamatrins cognize reflexively aware mind. Madhyamikas cognize freedom from elaboration. Father Tantras cognize bliss, clarity, energy currents. Mother Tantras cognize the seal of bliss, emptiness. Method and wisdom cognize non-duality. Mahamudra is cognition beyond intellect. And great completion cognizes great atemporality. Thus, all of these cognitions are cognitions that cognize objective reality, which is not the subject itself. Without an object, there is no cognition of mind. Any cognition is bondage by cognition. So this is like the anti-thinkers club. Cognition is the devil. Asterisk, cognition being defined as having an object. And what is an object? An object means that there's fixation. An object, these words have that carry so much. So an object implies fixation. Prefixation, you might say something like appearance. So appearance does not stop. She uses the traditional image of the waves in the ocean somewhere in this, right? So waves continue. From the realm of phenomena's great expanse of clarity, any thoughts and memories whatsoever may arise. For example, like the arising of waves and so on from the unmoving ocean. Thus, a person with realization rests on their own ground without altering. So thoughts arise, feelings arise, but they're not objects. Once they become objects, they hook and they lead to more objects. This is very much, the more I've been reading the Severance tradition and spending time with it, I come back to the really basic teachings of the Buddha, of the Theravadan tradition, papancha, proliferation. These are all being capitulated here, recapitulated here, but in a somewhat new working around this practice of cutting. So yeah, I think she spends a lot of time on exaltation, and anytime Buddhists are arguing with each other about the supreme view, the better view, all the way up to and including Dzogchen. So she Dzogchen's Dzogchen. Dzogchen has this tendency to sort of laugh at other views because it is the supreme view of no view or whatever. I'm not going to do justice to those sorts of arguments, but even Dzogchen is not safe from this critique as long as you are cognizing a vehicle as the supreme vehicle, reifying it as some supreme view. It's a devil of exaltation. I mean, and also like, who exalts a view that they don't hold? I don't think you ever hear that. Right? So it really comes back to I, pride. There is no devil of inflation, as far as I can tell, that goes beyond this. The devil of inflation is it's sort of the superset. So I don't think it has qualities to talk about really beyond being it's the root. It's the root devil, the devil of inflation. I think inflation is just a great word. Kenneth Folk used to give me instruction on deflating the air element. And that's what comes up for me when I think about inflation is it's about air. Uh, you could say prana if you want to use that system of sort of more subtle energetic ways of relating to experience that anytime we get confused about the air and think that it's something to hold, that's really what an object is. An object is held. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. If we talk about perception as having a perceiver, I think object has a holder. It's not an object if it's not held. And this is really about not holding. And so air moves. Can the air move without being held? I think of the devil of inflation as a pranic kind of layer. It's a comment on air. And just as a balloon, like a balloon is so nothing, but we can inflate the balloon and it becomes an object. So too can we inflate appearances and they sort of become three-dimensional. Um, I I wonder, yeah, I wonder if the how to work with the devil of inflation is touched on elsewhere. I mean, this is a very thick book, so there might be more outside of this particular sutra. But here, Machik doesn't really have much to say directly about the devil of inflation, except that when you can cut the devil of inflation, there's nothing else to do. That is the practice. Therefore, this non cognizant stupidity, again, that word stupidity, the victors teach as great timeless awareness. Ignorance is without object, so delusion is clarified. When objective appearance is just mentally abandoned, it is the decisive cutting off of all inflation without exception. Without an object, what would cognition get inflated about? Such dense, powerful, like direct teachings. Um, Even though Machik just a couple of stanzas ago went through all of the traditions and said, look, these they cognize these views, so therefore they're bonded by cognition. I will say Machik seems to have a fondness for this idea of great stupidity, vast stupidity, non-cognizant stupidity in the realm of phenomenon. Um, Ignorance is without object, so delusion is clarified. What a great sentence. That in traditional discourse, we would probably talk about ignorance as the adversary or as the thing to overcome. In this, there's a kind of ignorance that, like a deep ignorance, a deep stupidity that is actually the resting place of cutting. We're so this is such an anti-intellectual teaching in a way. So I think we can probably stop there. There's a lot to say about these teachings, and we might do more. But for now, I wanted to at least cover the four devils. And maybe just say one last word. Yeah, so she doesn't talk about the sound pet here, Phat. She doesn't really give that much instruction on how we cut in this. Um, the instructions are elsewhere. What I'm looking for is just clarity here around the attitude one takes toward the devils. Like, what is cutting? And um, cutting is severing the chain of thinking at the level of inflation. It's severing the chain of me, mine at the level of exaltation. And it's severing at a subtle level, kind of getting swept up in things. And so she does at the end, I suppose, give a little bit of a hint in terms of practice, which is take the hard road. When severing in haunted places and such, just as one who is burned by fire is tormented again by that fire itself, the instructions for suppression and severing in a place are like cauterizing the wounds by fire. Carry the load of appearing conditions. Understand that to carry the load is crucial. If you don't carry the load of all phenomena, the remedy of peace and happiness can't liberate you. So, in other words, go prove it. Go find training grounds. Go actively seek out adversity. That's the way. Adverse conditions are the way. So it requires this attitude, this victor's attitude, bodhisattva attitude, bodhicitta attitude. In a way, maybe the instruction is nothing other than that. That by taking up the victor's attitude, by being the victor and seeking out adverse conditions, um, you're, you know, what does she say? It'll be, I love this phrase. I might not be able to find it, but she says basically like go to haunted places and like it'll be a good training exercise. like like something's gonna happen. Um, because what else would you do? Really, what else would you do? Like the always returning to the root devilry is one's own mind. Uh, when you stomp around in haunted places, you're not seeking out. You're not like going to fight a dragon in Tibet. It's not exotic, even though it sounds exotic. This idea of going to the haunted place, but the haunted place is one's own mind. That's the whole point, right? Like, uh, uh, if the practice works well, you are always in the haunted place. So this whole practice is a love of haunted places. That's the attitude one takes up, and recognizing that one's mind is a haunted place. So there's not a out there exotic scary place. Although going to, let's say, a graveyard is like an expedient way of training, but bring it back with you. And that's a really different attitude than Evagris is, actually. Maybe we can close there. That, I mean, if you're a monk in the deserts of Egypt in 350, I would say you're also choosing to practice in the on the haunted grounds. And in fact, I think a lot of the monks did. They would go without water, they would go without food to meditate in the desert. And that's where Satan uh, attacked Jesus. And I think a lot of these desert fathers were very consciously recapitulating Jesus's own uh, venture into the desert, into the wild. So uh, it's not that they don't share a certain level of courage to go to the haunted place, but I don't know if Evagrius has a an analog for the kind of nobility and courage and bodhicitta awakening mind that is a very natural, it's like a natural conclusion to the realization that one's own mind is the devil. Therefore, what is there to worry about? Right? Like there's a sort of confidence that comes from holding that awareness, that having that awareness. Whereas I would say for Evagrius, the home base is prayer. It's prayer, and I'm not saying that these are subtle distinctions I'm trying to make here, and I'm not confidently putting them in different camps, but I would say that prayer is much more foregrounded in Evagrius's recipe for working with devils because it's grounded in I am but a humble man. And so when I do this exercise as a humble man, I pray to angelic and divine intervention to help me against devils because devils are ultimately a sort of a superior being to humans. Devils and angels are in a higher realm than the human realm. Whereas when our starting place is that the devil is our own mind, and this is kind of capital mind, capital M mind. We're not talking about like small in my head mind. Um, but when we recognize these apparitions as not other than self, then what is there to pray to other than one's self? One's the sort of one becomes the haunted place. Um, and in the practice that we can talk about another time, that's that's great. It's great to be the haunted place because um, you become a feeding ground, a gathering place for all sorts of demons and suffering beings who will experience relief. Um, but that's for another time. I think we hit enough. If you made it this far, thanks for joining me with this barcast, and we'll see you next time.